Hey, what's up, guys? How are you all doing today? My name is Jordan McCracken-Foster, and I'm a teaching artist here at Art Prof. And I'm here today with Kat Huang. And today we are going to be doing a Procreate draw along stream focusing on landscapes. So if you want to make your artistic weakness your strength, definitely check out artprof.org, where we have lots of resources, tutorials, critiques. That's all 100% free. We also want to let you guys know that you can draw along with us in any medium. It doesn't have to be Procreate like we're using. You can use charcoal for whatever reason if you want, or pencil or anything else. And we also have photo reference in the description below. You don't have to use the same reference we're using, but you have access to them if you want to go for it. So, all right, Kat, let's get started. So do you have a direction, knowing what you're going to do with all this yet?
I don't know. So I just chose a bunch of photos I thought were interesting, and then I guess I'm gonna figure out some sort of composition from there. I'm kind of rusty. It's been a long time since I've drawn a landscape.
Yeah.
What about you, Jordan? When's the last time you drew a landscape?
Not that long ago, but right now, because I haven't drawn today and you feel kind of rusty, I'm gonna just focus on drawing a bone and this tree stump for a couple of minutes so I can feel a little loose. I figure it's nice to just be able to do this before messing up anything major.
Yeah.
There's less pressure that way,
Do you know how to minimize the reference screen, the reference window?
You can just take your finger, move it to the corner of.
Oh, I guess that's all I can do. All right then.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you make it its own photo and then just put it in the reference category thing?
Yeah, I did. But I also have it open on a layer just in case things go awry because, last time I used the reference window, it lagged my Procreate. So
yeah, I remember that. That was a tough one. We were like, why is it not working? This is the coolest feature. And we're stuck.
Okay. I'm gonna just start with some scribbles because I want to try to find big shapes in my landscape and how to lead my eye through the composition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I have a general idea of what I'm going to use based on the reference that I pulled up, which you all will see soon in a couple minutes. But I want to keep it simple. I figure for a stream like this, it's the first time we've done landscapes. We're so used to doing characters that just take baby steps. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like environments are naturally a little tougher for me. So taking my sweet time, not going to rush into things.
I knew this person, one of my classmates back in art school, who's now a background painter for DreamWorks or something.
Oh, that's dope.
She could be your colleague, but
maybe.
Anyways, she's wonderful at painting landscapes, and I was always envious whenever I saw her do that. But I also saw, the more I looked at her work, that she always had a trope of putting a huge tree on the side or a huge item on this side. Does that make sense? She'll put a huge tree here to frame the composition. Mm-hmm. And it was either on the left or it was on the right, pretty similarly to that. And I actually had to point it out to her, you're doing this over and over again in all your landscapes. You got to be aware of that. So I don't know, when I first started with my first scribble, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing what she's doing. I'm putting that huge shape on the edge like that. Oops.
You outed yourself just now.
Yeah.
You know what? I think as long as people recognize that, then that's fine because, there are some compositions where that will work.
Yeah.
There's this very classic type of landscape, especially for concept art, where no matter what it is, there's always a guy with the staff in the foreground. No matter what genre it is, no matter what he's wearing or the environment or whatever, it's just staff guy.
Staff guy.
Hellish D Art says, "What is that? What is that you are drawing, guys? I can't see it clearly." Oh, I am drawing a bone. Looks like a jawbone, and then I'm gonna get to this tree stump in a little bit. I'm just doing this to kind of loosen up and kind of, you know, get used to drawing, because I actually haven't drawn that much today because I've been doing other stuff.
So I'm just doing random scribbles to find big shapes in my upcoming landscape image. But then I figured, you know what, Clara and I did a video about thumbnails very recently, so I might as well just shrink all of these compositions into thumbnails so I can see them cohesively and see what works and what doesn't work.
Maybe I should be doing thumbnails instead of drawing tree stumps and bones, but it's too late. Done. Yeah. It's nice drawing nature elements like this because there's not as much pressure. Like when you're drawing like a character, it's very clear when something is off. But when you're drawing a tree stump, no one can really be like, you're wrong. It's like,
right.
No, I'm not.
I think, yeah, that's the beauty of like natural objects in general, especially when it's like tree stumps or something. Oh, Gargi says, I am so happy to see Kat's scribbles. They give me so much encouragement to be loose. Oh, I'm glad. Be loose, Gargi. Oh, fun. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I think everyone needs to do some loose scribbles every now and then.
Yeah. I was going to say, when I saw the name Gargi, I was like suddenly taken back to my childhood because I lived next to two girls named Gargi, and I would call them the Gargis.
Wait, what? They were both named Gargi?
Yeah. I lived next to two girls, like from different homes, and they were both named Gargi. So I called them the Gargis, and they would always get so annoyed with me. They tried to call me the Catherines, but I was like, that doesn't work. You see, there is only one of me and two of you.
That's hilarious. Like, what are the odds that name is, as far as I know, not super common? So I don't know. I guess it just happened to be on the same street, not even the same neighborhood. That's crazy. Wow. Let's see. So I'm curious, for you guys who are drawing with us, do you normally draw environments or paint environments, or is it something that's kind of brand new to you, you've been avoiding / procrastinating? Because I know for me, I totally procrastinate and avoid them sometimes.
Yeah, I tend not to draw too many environments because I only have to draw them when I have to.
Yeah. The thing about it for me is I have to really convince myself to get excited to do it, and then that excitement doesn't always come. And
Yeah.
I do it more, but it's like, I don't feel like it.
You know, for some people, they love doing that. Like I know my friend Julie Bassett, who we also see once in a while here in Art Prof, she loves drawing natural landscapes and just nature in general. And I want to be that too, but I just can't like get myself to be as excited as her. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, I think it's more like interiors too, like perspective. I just don't feel like doing any of that and drawing all the details to make a building look nice. Oh, we have a question here from Art Prof. Are you thinking right now about what kind of landscape you want to make, like in terms of mood or type of landscape, or are you just winging it at the moment? I guess that's more for you, Kat.
I'm kind of winging it, but the more thumbnails I draw, the more I'm drawn to this one that I'm circling right now, just because I think it's like a cooler composition because I'm playing with the cloud here as a shape. You can see the cloud there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, something like vast. That's so big. A vast landscape. Yeah, I'm gonna try something like that.
Yeah, if you're asking me that question, I'm focused on my little tree stump. I'll be done in like within a minute or two, but yeah, I'm starting to get a little loose and feeling a little better about getting started on something that's going to be a little bit more complex. So, Kat, do you think you're going to do like a more like a really clean or relatively clean line drawing, or are you just going to go into color? What are you thinking?
I think I'm going to go straight to color because one of my reference photos, I'm really inspired by this one here of Goblin Valley. I think that's what it's called, because the shadows and the light here are really interesting to me. So I think I will think in terms of blobs of color and value, not a line drawing.
Yeah. Cool. I think this might be one of those times where I mimic that. I usually will focus so much on line that that color and shading and stuff doesn't really come into play as much. But just by the nature of what we're doing, I think I kind of have to drop that just a little bit. Okay. Planes. All right. Textures for tree stump and the bark, and I think that should be good right now. So I'll move that down.
Our prof says, can you explain why you chose the reference photos you did, especially that photo that are not of landscapes, like the one of mushrooms you picked, Kat? Well, for me, I think I said earlier, I just chose ones that were interesting to me. Like I liked, in this case, the bone's weird jaggedy texture. And I was like, oh, that could be bone or that could be tree bark, or, you know, it could inform my image in some way. In this photo here, I like the plants, the foliage. Yeah. And for the mushrooms, I thought, oh, that's just a cool shape and a cool direction that all the mushrooms are traveling in. Like I could transform those into trees, and that could be interesting. So just stuff that I personally find interesting. You don't have to find them interesting. You can find other photos that you like, but yeah, to each their own. What about you, Jordan?
I think, I'm sorry, I was focused on one thing. I forgot what the question was.
The question was, why did you choose the reference photos you chose?
Oh, okay. Thank you. So what did I choose? Well, actually, let me go through what I even picked out, other than the tree stump and bones. So I chose this little dead tree. I guess this is also Goblin Valley. Some rocks here. Nice little calming mountain. And I like them mostly because of the shapes. There are some compositions also that I really like. Like I really like the curve of the hill on this one, and the cloud. And I also really like desert scenes for some reason. Some of you may know Prince of Egypt is like one of my favorite movies, and every time I see it, I just get inspired. So I think I was drawn to them for that reason. Let's see.
Maggie says, watching Disney classics made me interested in drawing environments. Fell in love with the concept art of Evan Earl. I've never, Evan Earl and Mary Blair. Oh, wait. Oh, the artist. Sorry. I was like, Disney film. I've never heard of that. For the way they used colors. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Mary Blair's awesome. I've never really heard of Evan Earl. Have you, Jordan?
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny. We talked about this a couple days ago on a stream where we had Ivan Earl, and he worked on a Sleeping Beauty and a lot of other Disney films, but his painting style is like super famous. But yeah, he's really good with graphic colors and stuff. And Mary Blair's dope too. I really appreciate her work. Let's see. You know, I have to say that like seeing environment art from these movies and stuff is actually so inspiring. Not just old Disney, but like a lot of new stuff. Like Moana is really amazing. There's another thing I was just thinking of, but it slipped my mind.
Frozen.
Huh?
Sorry, I was joking and said Frozen.
Frozen's pretty too, but
yeah, it is pretty.
I know it's not that. Dang, what is it? I don't know. My mind's kind of gotten away from it.
Oh, have you seen that new Pixar movie called Soul?
I haven't seen it. I don't have Disney Plus, so I apparently need to get it. But I've heard amazing things about it. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I want to eventually.
Yeah, I gotta check it out. I've been busy watching Cobra Kai. I just watched all of season 3. It was great.
What is it?
It's Cobra Kai. It's a series on Netflix based on the Karate Kid, but it's like it's 34 years after the events of the first film, and the main characters come back, and it's basically them and their kids now, and how their rivalry inspires all the events that happen to them. So it's really good. I like that.
Okay. I deleted some thumbnails, I added some thumbnails. I think I'm gonna go with the bottom right because it has like really cool shapes and shadows that it's playing with. And I'll just like make it up as I go with the final piece.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I understand that. I'm looking at this and there are times where I do thumbnails and in my mind, I do it just because I need to get them done. But personally, I'm kind of like, I know what I want to do. Why am I wasting my time? Just go for it. Duck draws. How do you draw backgrounds with characters with focusing too much on one thing? I'm not sure I understand the
Oh,
question.
how do you draw backgrounds with characters without focusing too much on one thing? Like, how do you provide that visual hierarchy? Like, how can you make it clear without making it too muddled? I hope that's what you mean, duck draws. Um, Jordan, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, sure. I think just like when we talk about some of our composition streams, figuring out your focal point, figuring out what the point of the piece is, what you're trying to say, is all going to play a big role. So if I have a particular character who's the focal point, I have him in the foreground, I could place the like for why don't I just draw it out? Um, Hold on one second. Let me do this. So if I have a particular character who's standing right here, and I want him to be the focal point, maybe I have other objects kind of point in that direction. Maybe I have a mountain here, maybe some clouds that all kind of lead us to him, and then maybe a sloped building or rocks. So just play with the composition, see how you can be creative and find ways to lead the eye. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, Jordan, that reminds me of some really good and like surprisingly simple advice I'd heard from a very renowned art director named Françoise Mouly. She's the art director of The New Yorker, I think. But she said, whenever you want something to be in focus, put them in the vanishing point. Does that make sense? So let me give an example. If you have a building and you have a vanishing point, right? Like they're all in perspective, everything's in perspective. The vanishing point is around here, right? And you want to focus on a star. Let's put a star right here.
Uh-huh.
You want to put it on that vanishing point because inevitably everything's going to point to that star. Now the star is the focus, right? So simple, but makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And so the cool thing is there's so many ways to do it. Like there's no one way to get it right, um, which is I think where a lot of people who are first starting with this will struggle because they're like, "What's the right way?" And it's like there's many right ways to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like I know the struggle. Trust me, but it's kind of
Yeah, to go back to Duck Draw's question, I totally agree with Jordan. It really depends on what you want to say, what you're trying to tell in that narrative. Will determine what you want to focus on. So it could be that it's a stormy, rainy day. And what do you want to focus on? Obviously, it's stormy, it's rainy. You don't want to focus on the little duck that's sitting on the pond or something when that scene is going on, right? So it depends on what you want to tell.
I like how you brought up duck as the subject, and that's
Oh, that's a total coincidence.
Charles Reyna says, "How do you think improving drawing skills can help a more abstract artist?"
I think you need to know rules to break them. So if you want to portray an abstract human figure, you really want to make it very clear that it's an abstract figure and not like half in proportion and half abstract, right? And then people are like, well, what do you want from us? Like, what do you want to choose, right? So I think that's the underlying lesson here is like you have to know the rules to break them. You can't just like break the rules without knowing the rules, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree with that because what happens? I'll break it down a way where it's for like illustration and concept art and stuff. 'Cause that's my wheelhouse. But a lot of times people will struggle with drawing, but when they're confronted about it, they'll be like, "Oh, it's just my style." It's like, no, it's not. It's not your style. You just don't know what you're doing, which is totally okay. It's totally okay to not know. And I say that because between me and my friends, whenever we said stuff like that, that's usually what was the underlying issue. Um, Now, if you want to do more abstract art, I agree with Kat. I think knowing rules before you can break them and having that versatility is always going to be a benefit. And I think even people who focus on realism can learn a lot on from abstract art as well. You know, there's a certain looseness, there's a certain freedom that abstract artists have that can be challenging for the average realist, or you know, someone who's more of an illustrator or something like that.
Maria says, what's your favorite moody landscape cliche? I've never thought about that before.
I haven't either.
Moody landscape cliche. I love shadows. I don't know if that counts, like really dramatic shadows, shadows that form shape in a composition. Maybe that's my favorite cliche.
Yeah, I guess it depends what favorite would mean for me, because it's like, is it funny because it's cheesy, or funny because it's like really epic and awesome? Because like there's a ton of those. Like there's something called an I want song in like every Disney movie where they sing about what they want, and like between 10 and 15 minutes in the movie. And it's almost always like a sunset by the beach or something, or a big body of water. Like Hercules does that, Moana does that. You know, there's so many things. So I think that's a lot of fun personally. It just makes me laugh. Let's see. Maybe I might have a more interesting shape for this rock.
So originally I was like, oh, I'm going to plan this piece by color. But then I'm actually planning it by tone. So I lied. I'm sorry, I lied.
I hope the audience can forgive you, Kat. I don't know what's going on.
Please forgive me.
I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want to do. Focal point, and then I can add little tiny rocks over here. And typically, also when I do landscapes, at least when it's more naturey and not perspective heavy, I won't spend that much time worrying about how great the line work is. Like, I'm getting my basic shapes here, but it's not to the point where it's, you know, someone's going to look at it and be like, wow, that's like the best drawing you've ever done. That's not my goal here. Just want to be able to read it, figure out what I'm doing. Try something else.
This seems kind of scary so far. I don't know if I want to go scary, but we'll see.
Scary? Oh.
Seven Angelic says, kind of specific question, but any tips on skies and creating depth of field and clouds? Mine always fall flat, and I'm never sure where to land the horizon. Oh, landing the horizon too. I think it also depends on how much focus you want on the clouds. Like in my composition, it takes up half, a third of the composition, and the sky itself takes up half. So really the focus here is on both land and sky. But if you wanted to focus on the sky, obviously the horizon line should be lower, right? If you want to focus on the land, horizon line should be higher. So how to create depth with clouds? I think you also have to know that there are different kinds of clouds. So there are like wispy clouds, there are full clouds. And if you want to portray depth, I think you should also know what kind of clouds you want to make. So in my case, they're just like billowy big clouds. But if you have wispy clouds, you can have them go off into the distance, or they also follow the rules of like perspective and stuff. If they're closer to you, they're bigger. If they're farther away, they're smaller. That was a lot of answers for that specific question. But Jordan, do you have anything to tack on?
Yeah, you said at the tail end, actually, it was just the perspective of clouds. Like if I'm drawing, here, I'll do a quick example. Get my brush out. So if we think about, too big. If we think about perspective, when we have a horizon line here and we have our vanishing points kind of doing this, and we build a little sky grid, clouds aren't just plopped on top. They are going back in space. So instead of thinking clouds like boom, boom, like that, I would say think about it as it's going back in space, getting smaller as it goes further back, or the height of it. Is one cloud higher than the other? Is one cloud covering the other? So there's a lot of different solutions that you can create just by using that. Okay. Now I'm at a stage where I'm just going to do random colors and see what happens. What I like to do personally, I like to do layers for like one for foreground, one for middle ground, one for background. And I'll just fill in the shape, and then I will do like a hue slider if I need to change the color. It just makes it a lot faster for me. And I also use a large brush. I find that really helpful, even if I'm not going to use it later.
Okay, I just flipped my canvas horizontally. Did you guys see that? I will do it again. See, horizontally flipped. Because I wanted to match my reference photos. So you see this tree is going towards the left. I also want to draw a tree going to the left. Darian says, when I'm using a reference photo, I always get hung up on making the details match the photo. How do you avoid that and get more creative? I got a simple solution for you. Use many reference photos and just pick a little bit from each so that you don't get hung up on just one. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, depending on your story and what you're trying to say, it's going to change everything. Like, I know I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but story is really like the key to creating the most original images, in my opinion, because one small change can mean a world of difference when you're creating something. So focus on that, and then, like Kat said, having multiple references can never hurt.
Like you can use, like, okay, in my reference window, I have mushrooms, right? And then I also have this tree. So what I can do is take the silhouette of the mushrooms and take the tree's textures and branches and merge them together. You know what? I might as well just do it now. I don't know. I just like, I really like this tree. I like this part of the tree, and I kind of wanted to draw that. I don't know. Okay, for the sake of demonstration, I'll do what I just said.
You got it, Kat.
Thanks.
You good. I'm thinking for mine, I kind of want to do like some sort of maybe sunset, golden hour kind of time. I try not to do something that's like straight on like noonday, because you won't get interesting shadows that way, generally speaking. So yeah, I find having some sort of variety would be helpful. Let's see here.
And another thing for, who is it, Darian, who asked that, you don't have to be totally married to your reference photos. So I'm taking the shape of these mushrooms, but I'm not going to copy it verbatim. I'm just going to get like a general swoop, just some inspiration from it. Oh, Darian Epps asks, can you take with 2 or more references and mix it into one? Yes, that is what I am doing right now.
Yeah, Kat's the master at references right now. Got everything together. I'm like, slap 2 on and we're good. The other thing that I failed to mention, I actually have ideas for color in my mind, but it's on another screen. It's from a painting from The Legend of Korra. I forgot to put it on before the stream, so sorry. but it's kind of like this purplish orange, analogous kind of thing, sunset thing going on. So forgive me.
Maria asks, do you ever use photo bashing to create your reference image? I imagine that if you'll take more than one day to finish, it might help keep track of what you'll use from each photo. Ooh, do you mean by photo bashing, do you mean like photoshopping images together?
That's what I imagine.
Yeah. Yes, I Photoshop things together all the time. Actually, there's a digital painting tutorial I did for Art Prof, and I photoshopped a man's face onto a caterpillar body just to see how that creature would look like in a reference.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I'd see that. That's great.
You can watch the video, Jordan.
I meant like before you said that. I'll definitely check it out. There we go. There's a lot of thinking that goes on because in a real setting, you'll probably want to be thinking about like how atmosphere plays a role, what time of day, what's the weather, like all these situations that can be that are incredibly important as you're working. Never want to leave that stuff out, but it takes a while to find the right colors sometimes.
I'm wondering if I should make these. Maybe people in the chat can tell me, should I make these trees or should I just straight up make them mushrooms?
I like mushrooms.
Okay.
But I'm also not the audience. So
I feel like the audience will agree with you, though.
Yeah, Clara did. Sarah Wise says, do you have any blending tips? I'm so bad at painterly stuff. Man, blending is a challenge for me. I totally understand. There's a couple of ways to go about it. One, if you're working digitally, there's always the Smudge Tool as an option. It's probably the simplest way. Let me get a softer brush. Where are my soft brushes? Am I blind? Oh, here we go. So you can always do like some sort of color picking and strong layer. And wrong size now. And you can always kind of smooth it out like this. That was a terrible brush to use, but just as a rough example, you could do something like that. But I find that if you take two colors, find a middle ground between them, like color picking both at the same time, and then blending them out that way is really helpful too. Now, Kat, do you know that technique that I'm talking about? I'll do it. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, well, let's see. Here, I'll try it this way. So I color picked this yellow again, and I'm going over it with a lower opacity over this red or magenta. And I color pick the magenta and going over it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you blend it from there. Sometimes that can really help.
Yeah. I think another way to answer Sarah's question is, like, how do you know, like, how smoothly do you blend? Sometimes you want to make it seamless, like it's plastic or something like that, in which case you would like blend and blend and blend until you can't even see brush strokes anymore. It's just like a smooth gradient. And then other times you want the brush strokes to be visible. And so you want some of that to be apparent. You don't want to blend it all away. I think it also depends on how large of an area do you want to blend it, because blending can be a gradient across a huge area, or it can be very quick, like the difference between light and shadow, right? So that is just a little bit of blending, but not too much. So there are ways to blend like what Jordan just mentioned, and then there are ways to like take it farther or reel it back in depending on what kind of texture you want to show. I hope that is a useful tip for you. Everyone likes mushrooms. Okay. The
like,
fan favorite.
Everyone's like trees, or we see trees all the time. Get the mushroom out.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
What did you want to draw trees more or something? Is that?
Yeah, because trees. Oh my gosh, y'all are gonna see some files. But anyways, trees are just like, I really want to get better at them. You know?
Yeah. I totally get that. Just need to get better at environments in general. I spend so much time on characters that definitely gets neglected. I know that. And I know that. Oh well, this is what it is for now.
Lucy says, I've been making a mushroom landscape, having lots of fun. Well, Lucy, make sure you post it into the Art Prof Art Alongs Discord so we can see it, because I want to see your mushroom landscape too.
Heck yeah. We want to see art from everyone who's drawing along with us. Please show us.
I double dog dare you guys to share it with us.
Yes. Yes. Bring out the elementary school dares. I miss those days. Things were so much simpler back then. I double dog dare you, or Jinx poke yo me a Coke, and all that kind of stuff. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I remember Jinx. I can't really remember anything else.
I'm sure there was some little sayings. Kids are a little too creative to not have more of them. We just probably suppressed them for whatever reason. Adults.
Puke says, there's been a lot of streams on color. Is there going to be one on limited color palettes, like 2 or 3? I think we're going to have, what was it called? The basics series that we're doing, like the basics of art, the elements of art. Like there has to be one on color there, right? So I'm pretty sure that limited color palettes will be talked about. Maybe Clara in the chat can tell you more.
I personally think limited color palettes are like one of the best things you could possibly do. And that's how I actually fixed a lot of my painting issues, was working with limited palettes and just trying that out. Because especially when you're working digitally, you have access to millions of colors just at your fingertips. Like, I'm looking at this right now, I could go here or here or here or here or any place on my palette, and it can become overwhelming for someone who's brand new. So definitely starting with a limited palette with just a couple of colors, or whether it's analogous or monochromatic or split complementary or whatever it is always going to be the right move.
Mm-hmm. Dash asks, who are your artist inspirations right now? Who are your artist inspirations right now, Jordan?
Let's see. Lorenzo Lam Franconi. We brought him up in a lecture a couple nights ago. He's an environment artist who works at I think he's freelance, but he works at Riot. He's amazing. LaShawn Thomas is always a favorite. Phil Barassa, those are both character designers. Patrick O'Keefe, he was the art director on Spider-Verse, and I'm actually using some of his brushes in here. It's very graphic and sharp, and like that's like a lot of the square shapes is from his brush set. Yeah, those are some favorites right now. What about you, Kat?
I've always looked up to Craig Thompson, the comics artist, because I love his brushwork. Even his speech bubbles look beautifully made. I also look up to a lot of, like recently I taught a comics class and everyone knew Takehiko Inoue, Takehiko Inoue, who made Slam Dunk and also Vagabond, the mangas. And oh my gosh, oh, he's a genius. He's so good at drawing with pen and ink.
Yeah, I love your artistic heroes. Have you ever met any of your artistic heroes?
Yeah, Hugh isn't really my art hero, but he's more like my story hero. I did meet Jin Lun Yang once. He illustrated American Born Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. Ooh.
Yeah, for me, I remember my artistic hero since I was like 17 was Sean Thomas, and I met him randomly at a convention one day, and he saw my sketchbook, and it was like one of the greatest days ever.
Oh.
Hellish D Art says, this could be random, but do you agree with artists who only draw one theme, like just landscape? You want to take that one, Kat?
Sure. Do I agree? I mean, yeah, I respect them because some people do that and some people do that for a living. Like I know a lot of people who are just environment painters and that's all they do. And you know what? Art is work. It's really hard to make art outside of your working hours because you just get exhausted. So inevitably they just end up doing a lot of landscape art. They're very good at it. But I know that in their formative years, they did draw other items too. They didn't just do landscapes. So yeah, just like test around, see what you like. And if you find one that you're really good at, there's nothing wrong with focusing on that. But you have to try other things as well. So, Jordan, do you know any artists who only draw one theme?
No, that working professionally, no. The thing is, there's generalists and there's specialists. Generalists are people who can do just about everything, and maybe they're at an equal level with everything. But then there are people who are specialists who excel in one particular area. The people who can do everything, at least in the concept art world, will probably get more jobs and more work because if their art director says, "Hey, we need an environment one day," and "Hey, we need a character the next day," they can still do it. And I think it just opens opportunities. Sort of like how the question before about abstract versus like how can abstract artists learn from one realistically and vice versa. I'm playing around with all these brushes. So I've only used them in Photoshop. I haven't really seen how they work in Procreate because the settings are slightly different. So it's kind of cool. I did do a Bob Ross study in Procreate one time, and that was stressful. It was so stressful. He moved so fast. It's insane. Zam, I think that's how you pronounce the name. Sorry if my question seems confusing, but would you recommend starting with digital art or getting better at traditional art first? I'm thinking of starting digital, but I'm not sure if I should. I personally think that it's always good to have a traditional background first, or at least some knowledge of it, because the digital tools generally mimic traditional. They try and get as close as possible. Like there's some brushes in Photoshop that are very close to oil paint, or they look like it, they feel like it. So I think it's always good to get that experience, even if you don't ever use it again. What about you, Kat?
Yeah, maybe it's old-fashioned of me to say to start with traditional, but you know what? You have to do both. So I think that you can start with digital, but make sure you get that traditional in your formative years. You don't want to like be an expert at digital painting and then not be able to handle oil paint at all, like handle it clumsily. I think there's a merit to handling different mediums that have different ways of using them. So using acrylic is very different from using oil and is very different from using graphite, right? So try out everything, but to start, yeah, I would say start traditionally, but if you start digitally, that's fine too. Just make sure you do traditional.
Yeah. The other thing, it just popped in my mind after we spoke about it, but one thing a lot of digital artists will do who don't generally draw traditionally is they'll do this and they'll zoom in a ton, and they'll fix all their little errors. And they spend so long fixing those little errors, they didn't realize like they're fixing all these little errors sometimes because they have trouble drawing, not because the tool isn't doing what they want. So oftentimes it's just a matter of getting that skill, because every person I know who can draw traditionally very well can draw digitally very well. They might take a couple days to get used to the tools, but other than that, they're on the roll. They can do it.
Clara is asking, Jordan, why are you making the colors super soft and fuzzy in the background, but the big rock in the front has really crisp edges?
So one is the subject matter, and two is the distance. So the soft background is the sky. I don't think I've ever seen a sky with hard edges, other than like a complete style shift that worked really well, at least not for me. So that's why I have that all soft. Whereas the rock in the foreground is very rigid and tough, because that's what rocks are just naturally. Also, the further things are in the distance, the fuzzier they tend to be, because atmospheric perspective, it's not as close to our eye. All those different rules.
Oh, I paint so slowly. I want to get faster.
You know what? I think now that I remembered that I did the Bob Ross thing, I think I want to do more of those. Because say what you want about Bob Ross, I personally think he's amazing, even though his work is kind of corny. But his speed is so highly respectable. Highly respectable. Like I can't get over it. You know how much work I can do if I could paint like that in 20 minutes? Darian Tyler asks, do you think digital art could ever replace traditional art mediums like oil painting? You want to take that one?
I don't think it will replace it, because they're inherently very different. And sure, you can mimic oil painting through digital. But if you go to the Louvre and you go look at the raft of the Medusa, I don't think you're ever going to say that a digital painting can mimic that. One, it has to do with like the grandeur. It has to do with like being there. Was it kinesthetic experience of being in front of a painting? And another thing is this: when you see a Vermeer painting in real life, they're just like jewels, as Clara put it once. But when you see a scan of a Vermeer painting and you see it on the computer screen, it feels completely different. Like, I don't know if you've experienced this before, Jordan. Have you?
Yeah, definitely. Seeing the real thing is always so much better. Like just the colors, the choices, the decisions they make, how you can observe up close, all those things I think are really, really great. And I would personally miss that. And I remember going to the museum in Boston, art museum in Boston, and I was just amazed by all the stuff that I saw, especially people like Sargent. That was great. But this question that was asked about oil paint being replaced, I think can be applied to anything art related. And I remember my teacher, he once showed me a website called willarobottakemyjob.com. And basically what you do is you plug in any career you can think of, and it gives you the probability of it being taken over by some sort of AI in the future. And if you search artists, it's like 1.5%. So artists will keep their jobs.
Who's calculating?
I don't know. I have no idea. But there are some jobs that you don't really need the same way anymore. Like I know sales associates, which what I used to do. I used to just work at a cashier and stuff as a cashier. Those can be automated very easily. All you need is to make sure someone knows how to make the machine work if it's messed up, or if someone has an issue. But like if you walk into CVS or something, you see like 3 self-checkout lanes, just running by itself. But artists are here to stay. So hope that encourages someone. Duck Draws asked, how did you start digital art? Why don't you take that one?
I first was introduced to digital art through AIM messaging because there was a little draw screen and I was like I was instant messaging my father at work and I was like drawing with that screen. So that's my very first memory of digital art. And then I happened to get like a free thing of Photoshop CS3 again through like my father's work. So that was provided to us. And it it like blew my mind that there was like a specific software I could use just for drawing and it wasn't just for fun like AIM messaging, you know? So that's how I started. It was just childhood curiosity. What about you, Jordan?
Let's see, how did it start? I had a class that they offered at my high school with digital art, and they had access to Photoshop, but it wasn't anything like the stuff I'm doing now. No one who had digital paint. It was just like, here's how to make a poster with type and shapes of color and stuff. Um, and then I got a tablet, a hand-me-down tablet, and I tried to draw over one of my traditional drawings, which happened to be of, believe it or not, Aang from Avatar. And
Whoa.
not even a lie, I'm dead serious. And and I tried to color it digitally, and it came out horrible. But that's how it all started. And then going to RISD and then the Academy of Art, obviously I had to do it a ton. So yeah, but I guess it's been like 10 years technically since I really started doing that. Didn't really think about that.
Actually, it's kind of interesting. You and I have very different starts. I feel like I had a much younger start and you had a much later start. And the circumstances were just like super different.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering when you started digital art if you were aware of other digital art, because when I started, I absolutely was not aware that there were actually like digital artists out there.
I didn't even, yeah, I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to draw. I don't think I knew what deviant art was at first. I didn't know that a lot of artwork was done digitally for some of my favorite movies and stuff. It was just like, and the other thing is I kind of had to teach myself a lot of this stuff, like, and YouTube wasn't really as big as it is now. So, there's a lot of questions that don't get answered. So I would have to, I'd have to stumble upon something in order to really learn, which was the big challenge for me, I think.
When I first started doing digital art as like a young child, I didn't know that there was Control Alt Z. For those of you who aren't aware of this, Control Z is like to go back one step, and Control Alt Z is to go back multiple steps. So one time I accidentally clicked the paint bucket tool and filled out the color like in a really ugly way, my line art. When you paint bucket line art, it just becomes jagged, ugly pixels. Yeah. So I did that and I was like, oh, I better hit Control Z. But instead of that, I accidentally paint bucket tooled it again. So it became even uglier. And I was like, oh, I guess I have to abandon this piece altogether because I didn't know that Control Alt Z existed.
That's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, I feel like we all have those kind of mysteries.
Janella's asking, any tips for people who are new to Procreate? Should we watch tutorials or is it better to just play with it and figure it out on your own? My advice is just play with it, have fun with it, because I guess you do have to know some basic things like the brush tool and also layers, the concept of layers. But once you have those two down, I highly encourage you to, play around. And then if you stumble upon a problem, go look it up.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that, Jordan?
I recommend both watching all of our art prof videos that we've done on Procreate and playing with the app on your own. And you're going to learn a lot just by discovery, just by trying it. If you're familiar with Photoshop already, as an example, you will have no problem figuring out how Procreate works. It's very, very similar in a lot of ways. There's a lot of additional tools or things that can help enhance your art making process, but it's not a very difficult tool at all. I feel like Clara should chime in on that too.
Yeah, because I feel like Claire is a true noob. Like I have a Photoshop background, and Jordan has been using Procreate for a while now, so Clara should give her 2 cents.
Hannah Kim says, "Hi, I'm a beginner. Can I ask you to give me some advice about using Procreate?" Okay, well, looks like we're going to do that right now then. All right, you want me to take this, Kat, since you claimed me as the Procreate master, I guess?
Yes, go for it.
All right, so at the top, so Procreate is a tool that is very set. Like you can't really change the way it looks a whole lot. So the tools should match all the time. So we have our brush tools right here, our brush panel, brush library, whatever you call it. And in here, I have groups of brushes, and I can choose any one of them to paint with or draw with. The cool thing is also, if you want to edit your brushes, you could just tap on the brush itself, and it brings you this brush menu. And to be honest, I don't even know how to use it very well. Like I kind of just, it's a lot. You know, it talks about taper, stroke, spacing, rendering, wet mix, color dynamics. Like it's just over the top, but it gives you a lot of customization abilities. There's the Smudge Tool, which has the same brush library. You can use the exact same brushes as in the brush panel, but instead it's just going to smudge it that way. Same thing with the eraser. You have all this access to all the same things. You have your layers here, and you can create clipping masks and alpha lock, which is basically locking your pixels so that you can't color outside of the lines. You can have groups as well. And then over here is your colors, your color palette. You just tap on that, and you have a few different ways you can view it. So you can view your colors as a disc, where you can kind of go around like this and change the saturation and value. There's this one, which is the classic mode, which is what you'll find in Photoshop most often. Harmony, which is a cool tool where if you are trying to figure out like a particular color scheme, like analogous, you choose one of these, and it'll automatically kind of map out the colors that you need in order for it to work for you. And then we have value, which maps out the values, hues, and stuff. And then you can also create your own color palettes that you can use whenever you like. These little sliders on the side are for the brush size on the top, and then the opacity of the brush on the bottom. You have your settings with the wrench icon, adjustments with this little magic wand, selection tool, and then transform tool with the arrow. And then gallery is where all of your other artwork is.
That's very complicated, Jordan.
What was the complicated part? Because to me, it's not. So help me, because I want to make sure I'm clear.
I feel you just need to know layers, and you need to know brush and how to pick colors. And then you experiment with that. So of course you know that the layers are here, up here in the top right. You can add layers, you can subtract layers, and this is the brush tool right here. And color picking is here. And just draw from there. And if you encounter anything that, oh, there's probably a shortcut for this, oh, there's probably a trick for this, then if you care to look it up, then you can look it up. But for now, just know layers, brush, and just draw from there. Have fun.
Hopefully something I said sticks. And if it doesn't, there's always a replay button. Also one other thing, there's a little button right here, this little arrow, which is the undo button, which is also very helpful. Morning Atlas says, how do you get stable and nice line art, I assume? Smooth line art. Kat, you take this one.
Smooth line art. There is no trick to it. You just have to be really slow and careful about it. So let's say I want to do line art of this mushroom right here. I'll do it in like a dark brown. I would literally just have to like zoom up and be like, just draw out my lines, right? And then like, there's no trick to smooth line art. It's just a lot of effort and a lot of time. I guess that's my answer to that. What about you, Jordan?
I think, yeah, that definitely is part of it, just practicing a lot. but I also think varying up line weight is a key thing. So for those who don't know what I mean when I say that, line weight is, let's get a good brush. If I were to draw a straight line like this, there's no variation in this line at all. It's kind of dull and boring. So a technique that a lot of artists will use, say I drew this swiggle, they'll go in and they can thicken up some parts of the line here. And you know, it takes a while, but doing something like that, so getting that line variety can make something look a lot more interesting. And then experimenting. That's really it. It took me a long time to figure out how to get the lines to do what I wanted them to do. It took me years, but just practice, pencil mileage. It's what it's all about. How do you feel like your painting's going, Kat?
Of course I want to be faster, but I think this is like not bad considering I haven't done a landscape in maybe several months. So I'm at peace with it. What about your landscape, Jordan?
I'm in the same boat as you. I wish I was a little faster.
Yeah. Ooh, I wish I did cool color things like what you did.
You still can. You can pump up your saturation. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but you see, mine is kind of at broad daylight. I wish I could have done it at like dusk or dawn. Oh, Maya Hika asks, I struggle with environments and having to ink or do a line art of them. Any tips? I think the first thing that you can do is observational drawing. So go out into landscapes and try your best to draw what you see. And also keep a note of atmospheric perspective. That is your biggest friend while doing environments. So if you want to portray space, if you want to portray environments, you got to make sure that things that go back in space are less clear and less saturated. Things that come towards you are more clear and more saturated. So those are my 2 tips. What about you, Jordan? Do you have any tips for Mayahika?
Yeah, it's one we've given a lot, but study the greats, study the masters. If let's say you want to do environment art for a comic or for an animated project or something, look at the people who do that and see what their techniques are. There's one artist named Thomas Romain, Romaine, and he's a phenomenal artist. And he even put together a bunch of little studies, like 1-page panels of like how he creates his environments and the process he's thinking about. And studying things like that really, really help. And then just plain old simple hard work. That's going to be part of every answer about getting better is, hard work has to come into play somewhere. But yeah, study the greats.
Clara says, I really think half the battle with landscapes is being in the landscape IRL and observing the sounds, the smells, etc. Yes, do that. Experience actual nature and then draw that nature. Draw plein air.
There.
I keep saying draw plein air, but I'm like thinking, when was the last time I drew in plein air? Probably more than a year. Well, definitely I haven't drawn since the pandemic. I have not been out that much. So maybe that's why. I should be less hard on myself.
There's 2 artists or 2 situations I can think of where that has applied to people, and they applied that principle and it worked really well. There's one artist named Noah Bradley, and he said he would go out into like nature, like for like 3 summers straight every day and just paint environments, and that's what he does for a living. He paints environments. The other one is I brought up the movie Prince of Egypt before, but what they had the background artists do is, one, they took all the artists on a trip to Egypt to get and walk them around the places that the story would have taken place, like the tombs and some of the giant monuments and things like that, Sphinx and pyramids, and they got a sense of what the world was like. And then they also went to a place called Death Valley in California, where they literally had the sun beating on them as they're working on these landscapes, and they had the emotional impact kind of applied to the work that they did. It's
That's
almost dark.
brutal.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal, but they made a really pretty looking movie, so I can't even really blame them. You know? I'm like, took one for the team, guys. Good for you. That's how I feel.
Ira says, "Hi, I'm a beginner at digital art too. I got a drawing tablet recently. It's a Wacom Intuos. It's one without a screen. Any advice on improving with drawing and painting on a tablet without a screen?" I actually started out with the tablet with no screen too. I worked on a little hand-drawn tablet for maybe many years. I can't count off the top of my head, but you just kind of adapt to it. So the more you like work on it, the more you start to get your cursor and your hand in sync, even though you're looking at the screen and you're drawing like down here, right? Actually, when I first got my Cintiq, I was like so blown away that I could like look at my hand and draw. My mind was still focused on like cursors separate from my drawing hand. So I don't know. I guess it's like a mindset. You just get used to it the more you use it. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer. Just draw more. But I think you really need to just practice with your mediums.
Yeah, I struggled with that. I also started off on tablets that didn't have a screen. I was like, oh, why? Why is it so hard? And it's particularly with line work. When it came to painting something, it wasn't as much of a struggle. But because I really like the crisp, clean lines and stuff, I was like, man, this is hard. But I've seen it done before. And I know artists who even prefer to do their line work on that. And that blows my mind, personally. But it's doable. I know that for sure. I know that.
I would recommend, whether it's a tablet with a screen or without a screen, that you get a large tablet. It's really hard to control a small tablet.
Yeah, totally agree. You know, if anyone who's ever been to art school or has seen or has been to class where they talk about using charcoal or something, one of the main keys is like use big strokes, use your entire arm. And with the super small tablet, it's very difficult to do that. When I'm on a 12-inch iPad though, or Cintiq that's really big, I'm able to still keep those principles going. So definitely a recommendation. It's a good point.
Clara says, "How about that sky, Kat?" Well, I'm doing it right now, Clara.
I gotta work on this mid ground because it's in the little sparse for. Maybe add some green. Okay. It's always the little details like this that becomes a little challenging. I think this gray actually looks.
You know, back when choosing my reference photos, I didn't realize I would have clouds in my final piece. So now I'm struggling. I don't have cloud references. Maybe that will be it.
You're doing just fine.
See, normally if we weren't, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your sentence.
Oh, I was going to say, normally if we weren't streaming and I had all the freedom to go back and choose more reference photos, I would choose as many as possible and also put them on a separate screen. So we're demonstrating all of these things for you guys, but you know, we do have other tips and tricks that we do outside of just like Procreate.
Yeah. I work on several screens at once generally.
Yeah, same.
Hellish the Art says, I still struggling with backgrounds, especially in ink sketches. I start shading all the elements, then get stuck with a blank background. I start shading. Wait, how are you shading without the background? I don't understand.
Well, okay, I'm a little tired. sorry. Okay. I'm still struggling with background, especially in the ink sketches. I start shading all the elements and then get stuck with a blank background. I think maybe what Helashi is saying is that they draw the subject matter and totally neglect the background. So they will like shade the subject and not shade the background, especially in ink sketches. Well, the trick to that is really you have to make sure you're covering all areas of the drawing. So you have a drawing, let's make it your goal to like touch every part of that drawing. Touch it with medium, right? So that you aren't just forgetting the background, that you actually touch it with the medium so that you do it cohesively with your subject matter.
Yeah, and if that's an area that you know that you tend to put off for whatever reason, uh, and it's not abnormal to be like that. I do that sometimes too, ironically with environments, and that's where you kind of just have to face it and just be like, you know what, I will conquer this. Um, like for me, I struggle with digital painting a lot, especially when it comes to doing things that are like portraits, and so recently I started like really paying attention to that and just sitting down for hours on end and just going like, you know what, I'm gonna get these environments done. Even if I hate it, I gotta learn how to do it. And I've improved a lot. Just, doing like 5 to 10 paintings. And I plan to do more, but it's a good start for me. Good morning. Cloudy background. The problem with having so many brushes, I never remember where they are.
That's why I always choose the first brush I see, and that's the only brush I use.
That's one way to do it for sure.
I'm sure I'm missing out on stuff, but I'm like, simple's best.
You know what ends up happening is I see ads on Instagram and they're like, buy this brush pack. It's like graffiti something. I'm like, oh, I need that, and I totally don't need it. I spent like $5-10 on it. And I'm like, just in case, there's gonna be that day. Um, Jordan, are there any good exercises or warm-ups you do to get better at painting landscapes in digital media? Actually, yeah, there is. I wish I had put it on here, but what I do sometimes is I will take a screenshot or an environment painting from something that I like a show, like one movie that I think has beautiful backgrounds is Atlantis: The Lost Empire, the Disney movie. Their backgrounds are so beautiful. What I'll do is I will uh, look at that and try and copy the exact same thing. Just simply do a master copy. I don't color pick, but I get as close as I can to the colors. I'll usually pull up the palette and then I will paint right on top of the photo. Like as an example, I won't color pick this blue sky, but I'm gonna see how close I can get. Let me get a good brush for it. Probably gonna be something. Let's see how that goes. All right, so that's too dark, too gray. So now I know to saturate it a bit and lighten it up. Let's try this. It's a little closer. Pump up the light a little bit more. Bam. All right, and then I just keep playing with that. I keep testing things out until I get really close. Like this color that I just picked is pretty close to what I want. And so I'll do that for like the main colors and then I'll just paint it. And I'll give myself half an hour or 45 minutes or an hour, have a set time. And I do it a lot. And that really helped me, especially this summer. I was practicing a lot, like every day. And I improved from it.
So, master copies from things that you really enjoy watching or reading or something.
Yeah, definitely master copies, but I went in there with a very specific focus of trying to learn how to apply the paint the same way that the artists would, and I was trying to learn how to get the color because I feel like sometimes you do master copies just for composition or just for drawing, but when it comes to painting, I'm trying to literally mimic, like I'm trying to think of their thought process. I'm trying to remember that. I feel like it's a little bit more intellectual that way, just by thinking of it like that. What was I gonna do? Oh, I was doing clouds. Totally forgot.
Oh, Maya Hika says, when drawing on site, do you recommend drawing straight into pen or do pencil first? I recommend you start straight to pen because I think you get more loose that way. It's great for warming up, and it's also great for you to just like trust what you see and trust that you can draw what you can see. And eventually, I guess, yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing pencil first and then going in with pen or watercolor or something like that. But all of my quick sketches are always in pen because I'm like, this is fast. I need to get this over with and can't commit too much. I cannot commit too much, which is weird because pen is like the ultimate like commitment tool. It's permanent. So yeah, I use pen to warm up for quick sketches. That's just me. What about you, Jordan?
I always just use pencils.
Oh, what? Pen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I very rarely use pen, and I don't know what it is. The permanence of it freaks me out a little bit. And even when I'm inking something digitally, I'll often, instead of using black, use a different color just to kind of psych myself out. Go like, this is, you could still fix this. This isn't the final when actually it is, and all I have to do is change the color of the lines.
Oh man, that's like, oh, that's so weird. We have such different approaches to it because I'm like married to the pen. I can't even think of doing like quick drawings that aren't pen.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely strengths to drawing in pen. I know that for sure because like I feel like it would actually build line confidence like really easily. Um, but or not really easily, but a lot faster in some ways. But I don't know. I can't separate from the pencil. There's just something about it. I like the way it feels. It's like my trusty tool. You know?
Mm.
Yeah, but each their own.
Thank you, Reina, for the super chat. As you guys know, your guys' support supports us and keeps our prof running and free and accessible to everyone. So thank you, Reina, for supporting this endeavor.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you think of my mushroom landscape, Jordan?
I think. Why'd you laugh as soon as you asked the question? I'm sorry. I think it's fun. I think that the shadows is probably my favorite part. Like that's the one thing that I'm like, super drawn to right now. And I think if you were to push it further, I would love to see just some highlights in the little mushrooms a little bit more, like the small, tiny ones. But
yeah,
but
I was once doing a jungle landscape, and one thing that really bothered me at the end of it was that I didn't really show much signs of life. Like, yeah, I did nature and trees and grass and stuff, but I guess I also wanted to put a silhouette of a bird here and there or something like that, like or a lizard or something like that, right? To occupy the space, especially since you can kind of see up close my piece, whereas yours is like super zoomed out, so you probably can't see a lizard on that, right?
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But even then, like what you said, I should have put more signs of life, like you said, like more some trees, some foliage, even different types of rocks. Like not just this one shape, but broken up rocks that are smaller near the base of it. Things like that.
Yeah.
A little cactus or something.
I really like it so far. I love the different textures of like the sky versus the rocky environment. And also the atmospheric perspective is really good. Like the rocky thing that's near us is very different from the rocky landscape behind.
Thank you. Thank you. Atmospheric perspective is like one of those things that can save a piece for me because part of it, I literally just added like half a second ago. Like it looked like this, and I was looking at it in the computer what you guys all see, and I'm like, man, that's similar. And I was like, all right, let's fix that. Add a layer, and it's all better now. How much more would you both work on your pieces to finish them?
Oh, I can work on it forever. I don't know. Maybe just like one more day or 2 more days if I really wanted to finish my mushroom piece. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, it would take me another couple hours. to add all the stuff.
Mm.
And I say couple, like, and I mean like 10, because I just
Yeah.
by really quickly.
Oh my gosh. I was like, hours. Jordan, are you crazy?
Well, time just goes by so fast. I'll put on Netflix, put on Cobra Kai or whatever, and suddenly 8 hours goes by. So yeah, that's just how it is. But typically, the answer for me would be like, when it's due, it's done when it's due.
That's true. Yeah, when the deadline determines when it's done. Well, I hope that I get to see everyone else's environments in the Art Prof Discord in the Art Alongs channel. Make sure you share your art with us. I'd love to see your guys' mushroom landscapes or rock landscapes or whatever landscapes. We love to see them. Make sure you subscribe to the Art Prof YouTube channel, and a big thank you to our top Patreon supporters. As you guys know, your support makes Art Prof what it is. We wouldn't be Art Prof without you guys. So thank you very much. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.